Living my best Emily Fox life with this red lipstick and talking about some of her favorite reads. Hey everyone, hi, welcome or welcome back to my channel. I'm Shelly and today I am going to be talking about a little reading experiment that I did, primarily reading Emily Fox recommendations. So if you are, I guess that's it. I'm done with the project. I'm reporting back and I want to tell you how it went. So if you're new here, hi, welcome. My name is Shelly, as I mentioned, and I really love books and reading. It is probably my favorite thing to talk about. What I'm reading, how I feel about what I'm reading, all the reading things. And if you like that, I would encourage you to subscribe, like the video. And without any further rambling on, let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. So every once in a while, I stumble across a booktuber. I stumble upon a booktuber who has actually really similar tastes to reading as I do. And sometimes it just takes a little while for me to realize this, or all of a sudden I'll catch a couple of their videos and I'm like, oh yeah, I liked that book. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I really liked that book. And all of a sudden I'm like, wow, we actually have a lot in common. And so then I start to tune into what that booktuber is reading and what is working well for them, in the hopes that I will also find books that I enjoy reading as well. And as you can imagine, this is what happened with me and Emily Fox. I catch quite a few of her videos and I really enjoy them. She is French Canadian. I believe she lives, I don't know if she lives in Quebec, but I know that her first language is French, although she's Canadian. And she's got a great vibe to her. And though I cannot imagine anyone that watches my channel does not watch her, like everyone who's probably watching my channel is watching her channel as well. However, if you don't know who she is, I would highly encourage you to subscribe. She's got good vibes. She takes things really lightheartedly. And I also noticed not only do her and I have we enjoy the same things, but we also critique books for the same reasons. They're sexist, misogynistic, or often like the biggest ick factor for her and I in terms of books is when there's just like a nastiness, a meanness towards women, and that's like a big ick factor for her, and it's also a big ick factor for me. So let's just talk about the books that her and I have in common. One of the authors that her and I both love is Becky Chambers. I have read 2 of her Wayfarer series, so A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, and the second book in that series that is slipping my mind. I also read one of the books in her the Chambers' Monk and Robot series, her little novella series, A Prayer for the Crown Shy, perhaps, I think that is. And I liked all of those books. They're fantastic, really cozy, low stakes, sweet, but also thought-provoking in a way that was surprising to me when I read them at the time. We also love books like, she really enjoyed North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. I also really, really loved North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. And Emily Fox loved A Little Life the year that she read it. And this is one of my favorite books of all time. Super dark, super bleak, but also just a fantastic read. We also love, let me think, what other things do we overlap on? I recently read Book Lovers by Emily Henry, and I really liked that, and all the things that Emily had to say about Book Lovers, I also agreed with. It's just nice to follow emotionally mature people and people that have more in their lives, like that more at stake in their lives that's going on besides just finding someone to love. Like the main character of Book Lovers is really about her career and the relationship with her sister, and there's just more going on than to find a life partner. Oh, another novella that her and I quite liked was Kim Jung, Born 1982, which is a really sort of I was gonna say harrowing, but I meant haunting. It's a haunting tale about a woman's life, like sort of the everyday woman in her life in Korea, I believe. So, yeah, those are all the books, not all of them, but those are a handful of books that her and I have agreed on to give you a sense as to why I was excited to possibly pick up some recommendations from her. So when I embarked on this project, I decided to choose books only for my shelves, books that I already own that Emily Fox enjoyed. And I thought that would be perfect because in this coming year, I really want to focus on the books that I own. I want to focus on reading the books that I own, and I thought that would just kind of be a good measurement. I don't want to buy anything new. I know that her and I have enough overlap, and I have books on my shelves that I want to read, and I'm going to let Emily Fox encourage me in that direction. So we're actually going to go from like least liked to most liked. So unfortunately, this is an unfortunate one, and it is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This is about an orc who's on the cover here, an orc who decides that she's done with her orking life, killing and smashing things up and seeking revenge or information from people. And she decides that she wants to open a coffee shop, and it's about her journey towards that change in her life. Low stakes, cozy fantasy. I would almost say that if you liked Becky Chambers, you would like this. However, I didn't like this. I actually DNF'd it, which means in booktube terms, I did not finish this book for a couple of reasons. One of which was that if something is going to be very, very low stakes for me, it has to have good banter. Like, it has to have like a sharp tongue, a quick wit. It has to have something that is keeping me really invested in the pages and is wanting me to keep turning the pages. Like, I have to be entertained at that level. And I really didn't feel like Travis could pull that off. Our author could not pull off the low stakes, but maybe like an interesting thought experiment or a sharp tongue, a quick wit, all of that. I didn't get that from these pages. And the way that I think it diverges from Becky Chambers is that even though Becky Chambers has low stakes fantasy, she has interesting thought experiments, at least in every one of the books that I've read, and I feel like there is a sincerity and true like vulnerability or honesty in Chambers' work that Baldree just, to me, didn't bring to the table. And so actually I got through about a third of this. I mean, I got through, 70 pages. 75 pages of this. And I was like, I'm not enjoying it. And I was literally starting to calculate like how many more times do I have to sit down and open the book and read it before I'll finish it. And I was more thinking about like how quickly can I finish this than enjoying the experience of reading it, and that's a terrible sign for me. And so I decided no. So even though I can understand why it got the hype and I could understand why Emily liked it, Emily, as if we were friends, we are not. But I mean, not because I don't want to be, it's just, we don't know each other. But anyways, I could see why people would really love it. It just really wasn't for me. Next up is a book that worked for me, but it wasn't my favorite. I'm going to save that for last of Emily Fox's recommendations. This was a book that she recommended. She said it was super weird, but it worked. I don't know if it made it to like the best of lists for her, but I saw it on my shelves. I decided to, pluck it off my shelves and finally pick it up and read it. And it is Vita Nostra, and it's by Marina and Sergei Dejchenko, and it is translated by Julia Hersey. So this is I believe, Russian translated novel. Ukrainian. They were born in the Ukraine, and they live in Russia. And the authors, I guess now they live in the United States. So it is translated from, is it translated from the Ukrainian? I'm going with it's a translated novel. It is a translated novel. This is indeed very weird. It's a very weird book. And I would say perhaps going in blind is maybe the best, because I believe that this hinges on the thing that kept me going was the surprise of its weirdness and the sort of oddities that would pop up and figuring out the world. That was really what kept me going with this novel. It is very well written, very thought-provoking, and what it does is that it is about a young lady named Sasha, and she is about to go off to college. She's at that precipice in her life, and she gets invited and somewhat forced to go to a magic school, and it is not a magic school that I've ever experienced. It is dark and odd, and it seems like not really anybody but a handful of people know what's actually going on, and there's not a lot of explanation. And so as Sasha is in some ways figuring out the world that she has been inducted to, we are as well. And she has to, I mean, just strange oddities happen. In a lot of ways, it's like super dark and very weird, very, very weird. But it did work. I was interested in the story all the way through to the very end. It has, like, it's just strange. It has like mini time loops, and it's about transformation. And in a lot of ways, I think it's about agency and the transformation of the self. For me, as somebody who is not super into experimental literature, I'm not really into super weird literature. I mean, I wouldn't say that that's my thing. I don't even read that much sci-fi or fantasy. And so this was definitely, I think, for me, a wide step outside of my comfort zone. And for the risk, it definitely paid off. I really enjoyed this book. So many of the sections, like, had me really gripped by its strangeness and its weirdness. I don't know if every single thing, every aspect of this book worked for me perfectly, but I will say that it was very thought-provoking and very weird. I know I keep saying that. It's just the best. It is the best adjective to describe this book. It is weird, but in a really, like, it's a serious weird. It takes its weirdness very seriously because it's dark academia and exploring deeper, more twisted themes. But it worked, it worked. And again, if you're up for the journey of being like an odd, strange, sort of cuckoo's bananas crazy, a little bit off the rails, but very much takes itself seriously rather than being satirical or, doing it for laughs or something like that, then I would say try this book. It is probably for you because, boy, was it just an odd one. But in a lot of ways, I'm still thinking about it, which is a good sign. The book that actually kicked off this project that made me want to read like Emily Fox for a handful of books was her favorite book, I think, of last year, and it's one of her favorite books of this year because she read it in English, and then Emily Fox read it in the original language, French, and she loved both. And I picked this book up because of her recommendation. It just sounded so interesting. It not a huge investment of time because it's a little slim thing, and I really wanted to read it. And so I was like, well, if I'm already going to be reading an Emily Fox recommendation, why not just read 3 of them and turn it into like a little reading project and report back on it and all of that. And the book that worked the best for me, it was, again, one of her favorites, and it is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Harpin, and it is translated by Roz Schwartz. Now, this book is, I think Emily Fox described it as bleak, but really, really good. This book definitely is, it represents, and it is exactly what I love about like dystopian fiction or science fiction. And here's what I love about those genres, or even fantasy, is that one, you take something that is, I don't know, maybe it's the thought experiment. That I think that's the most concise way to sum it up, is the thought experiment in the read itself. So I don't want to say too much. These essentially there's these 40 women who are in some sort of underground bunker living as prisoners. And the youngest of them all, the child of the group, our narrator, doesn't remember a life outside of this prison for which she is living. And the other women around her remember a different life. And so in that, our narrator has a different perspective than everyone else. The other women, they remember the luxuries of a former life, and our narrator doesn't. And it's sort of like the life in which she is living is the only one that she knows. And in some ways, you would think that it would work at a disadvantage, but it really doesn't. It was so fascinating to use that concept, right? Like, you're living this life that is far more restricted than the life that we know now, far more sad and bleak in a lot of ways. You're sharing this life with other women that you didn't choose or perhaps know in a previous life. And how do you make a life from that? And it was so thought-provoking, the way that our narrator goes through this journey of finding meaning in life, finding purpose in her surroundings and in her routines. The second half of the book is really surprising. Where this book went was indeed very surprising and interesting. And I really don't want to say too much more, but I could see why this made Emily Fox's Best Books of the Year when she had read it for the first time.
My friends are like this on the very top.
I can see why this made Emily Fox's Best Books of the Year. It's a really good one. And I would say that if you are into, like I read Foe by Ian Reid, if you're into like that sort of thing, like, I don't know, unexplained, dystopian, otherworldly strangeness, but in the pursuit of a really interesting thought experiment, this is your kind of book. And the thing was that she described this as bleak, and I walked away from it not really thinking it was very bleak. I really thought, that was so thought-provoking. That was so interesting. And, maybe on a reread, I will find it more bleak, that, I will be more aligned with Emily Fox's review. But for now, I was just like, man, this was so good. It was so good, and it was so interesting. And, it's not overdone, not overwrought, and I don't want this review to turn into that, so I won't say too much more, but it was just such an enjoyable read, and I wouldn't be surprised if this ended up in my Best Books of the Year, just because of how just well written, well thought out, super interesting and intriguing this book ended up being. All right, so that's it from me. I really enjoyed this experiment. I know she does this, Emily Fox does this series of like read it or unhaul it, and I feel like in some ways, I'll reach and grab it, but I feel like in some ways I was able to do that with Legends and Lattes. It's like, now I'm going to unhaul it, and I can say that I gave it a good old college try, and it didn't work for me. And so I feel like in some ways I am also exuding some of her inspiration in this video, even more so, because I'm like, I'm reading it or unhauling it, and this is my, unhaul moment. And then I also got to read some bangers, like some fantastic books, and here are the two that I decided to pick up, and that just were fantastic. So I would say overall this was a wonderful little experiment, a little like challenge or journey that I decided to go on. It was really satisfying to read in the vein of someone else's recommendations and see what worked and see what didn't. It was super fun. If you have picked up an Emily Fox recommendation, I would love to know what it was, what you read because of her. Did it work? If you are a fan of her channel and have picked up books that she's recommended that have definitely worked for you, please let me know. I would just love to dive more into, her taste, especially considering that, 2 out of 3 is pretty good. And yeah, that's it for me. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for being here and spending this time with me. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all in my next one. Bye.